Welcome back to Type 40. Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks here. And I'm joined this time by my guest, our returning guest, back from holiday. We've got Andi from Atomic Blonde LDN. You're looking well, Andi. Had a good time?
I had a lovely time, thanks, Dan. It's one of those sort of trip of a lifetime type things. You know, I just saw so many beautiful things, and it was great, and the weather was fantastic, and I'm back to earth with a huge bump. So looking forward to
Russell T Davies would definitely approve of the trip of a lifetime tagline. He does like all that stuff, doesn't he?
He does a good strapline, doesn't he?
I'm glad you're back, not just for the 60th anniversary, because there's something I wanted to ask you about, and because you're sort of our resident stream queen. I don't think anybody knows more about streaming platforms than you. You know, nothing gets past you, does it? I thought you're the ideal person to ask about this. There's been a whole wealth of Doctor Who news over the last week or two, and quotes and little bits and bobs here and there, and a few bombshells too. So Doctor Who fans have been a little bit upset about a couple of things. Does this surprise you at all?
Well, you know, colour me surprised.
Because it was only a couple of years ago, autumn 2021, that the fandom was in raptures at the return of Russell T Davies to the showrunner chair. Do you remember that? The sense of relief?
Oh, yeah, massive. I mean, you know, at that time, I think everybody was kind of put money on it being cancelled. We didn't even think it was probably going to come back because of the disastrous ratings. And then it was like names being bandied around, and you're just like, oh, please don't let them get their hands on it. Then it was like, oh, it might just get sold to America. So with Russell coming back in, you're like, say, safe pair of hands, isn't it? Or we hope. So I was like one of those ones that was like, oh, this is going to be great. So fingers crossed.
It eased the pain, didn't it, of the last production sort of limping its way to a ignominious conclusion. I think nobody could care less by the time it had all wrapped up, but there was that glimmer of hope on the horizon there. I mean, the thing was, though, in all that time in between, it's been such an agonizing wait. And even in the anniversary year, 2023, this big anniversary year, that curtain has come down painfully slowly, hasn't it? Tell us something. He's not usually backward in coming forward at all, is he, Russell T Davies?
I think a lot of this is driven by Disney, because obviously it's going to be on Disney Plus outside the UK. And they are planning...
Because they structure their programming differently, don't they?
Yes.
In blocks, depending on the calendar year. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. And... also, I think they're planning like a big launch, so they're doing something outside of what the BBC are doing. So I think they're very much kind of driving like how much gets promoted, when it gets promoted, to tie in with obviously their kind of run up to Christmas, I guess, and then say their autumn drop, like you say, their blocks. So I think a lot of that, whoever's got the purse string has the most control, unfortunately.
When we talk about television and film, domestic television in Britain, usually it's either made by an independent company for an independent station, of which there's only really one in Britain, that's ITV, because Channel 4 is made with public money as well. So there's only really ITV, and they seem to handle their own affairs in a way that's particular to them. I would imagine they've got their budgets, but there's lots of independent producers involved on the independent production companies. But the BBC, it's all tied up with public money. And they've also kept it, the line between the British Broadcasting Corporation and BBC Studios, they keep that, for the purposes of the general public, they keep that distinction very, very fuzzy, don't they? As if they don't want us asking too many questions about it. It's funny, that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, they don't really like us knowing what people are getting paid and what shows are being made. And,
it's only our money.
Yeah. It's like, exactly. It's like,
but the contrast, Andy, between that and the way that American studios work, because obviously American studios, they've always been had a finger in the pies of both TV and film, haven't they? And so everything's got a marketing budget, whereas British television tends not to, does it? They employ publicists and people to handle increasingly sort of social media accounts and things like that. For example, when we talk about movies, and I've heard you talk about this very, very well on your channel, Atomic Blonde LDN, where you speak about it's cost them this much to make the movie and it'll cost them this much to market it. Do you think that we're now drifting into that territory now with Doctor Who, now that it's going to be attached to Disney, and that'll be the big difference between the way the BBC promotes and the way that Disney do?
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about obviously for streaming platforms, and this is why they do have the marketing budget, because ultimately they want new subscribers, they want more money coming in. So you've got an inbuilt well, you've got an inbuilt income stream whether people are watching your channel or not. So it's a very different beast. So yeah, I absolutely think with Disney, obviously Disney are not in a good place right now. They are desperate for subscribers and coffers coming in. So yeah, we will see a very different, I think, marketing machine, because they are going to want as many subscribers around the world, not obviously just in America, to, you know, that Doctor Who may well open the door for them in or for some people who wouldn't dream of subscribing to Disney but would be a Doctor Who fan.
How do you feel when you see the gorgeous little blue box there next to the Disney logo? How does that make you feel as a British person?
I hate it.
Yeah, you
it's that
a little bit at that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, you know, I mean, one of the reasons I have my channel, and I'm sure you have yours, is, you know, we talk about you know, how our IPs have been vandalized, and two of the biggest ones, you know, Marvel and Star Wars, are Disney properties, and they've just driven them into the ground to the point that, you know, there's just complete apathy. Nobody cares anymore. I mean, nobody's even watching Loki season 2 or talking about it, and that was like their biggest thing, you know. And I've got a real apprehension around, you know, how much influence they have on what the storytelling will be. And if Russell has to tick certain boxes, like you have to do in every single Disney show, that really makes me nervous.
Last year, Russell T Davies gave the makers of Loki quite a hard time because of characterization, certain characters in there, and ideas that they sort of floated and not really developed very far. It was a very superficial plot line and takes on characters, all driven by identity politics, and he pulled them up on that. Yeah. So I was a little surprised a couple of months ago to hear him say in a statement that Loki season 1 was one of his favourite TV shows last year, and he was delighted that it was back. I thought, well, hang on a minute. I mean, I suppose maybe we can all be contradictory, can't we, in some way? But you do wonder, think, okay, well, what's changed?
He's not got to where he's got to, you know, without obviously he's got a lot of talent. I speak a lot that I like Russell T Davies as a writer outside of Doctor Who as well. I like a lot of his stuff. It's not everybody's cup of tea, because obviously he does write a lot of queer stories, but I just think they was done immensely well.
They're done in a way that everybody can relate to them, aren't they? You don't have to be a queer person, gay, anywhere near to relate to the human interest stories that Russell T Davies tells.
I mean, like, if you watch It's a Sin and it doesn't move you, you've just got you know, you have no heart. It's like, you know, they're people are going through something horrific, and you love those characters. So, you know, he's there on talent, but also I think he knows how to play the game, right? He's never publicly come out and criticized Chibnall. It's a little bit of, you could read between the lines in some of the things he said, but even in the latest article, he supports him, he's my friend, blah, blah, blah. We'll never know what he really thinks, you know. But the fact he's come back, I think, speaks volumes, but he won't directly come out. And I think, like I say, he plays the marketing game, he says the right things. He's you know, he waxes lyrical about the BBC. So it doesn't surprise me if now, you know, he's in bed with Disney, that he's gonna go, oh yeah, that their shows are great. Because, you know, nobody in their right mind say you don't criticize or bite the hand that feeds, right? So it doesn't surprise me. I find it a little bit disingenuous, but it, you know,
you can understand when they play the game. Yeah, you can.
Exactly.
You definitely can. I mean, I'd rather watch a box full of kittens get run over than watch Loki season 2. But you know, whatever he wants to do, it's fine by me. But yeah, I think the shine has come off Russell T Davies in recent months, because when he wasn't engaged so much with the publicity machine behind Doctor Who, he was at awards ceremonies and various political engagements, speaking very publicly about political and ideological situations. He was saying things which I found deliberately divisive and adversarial, I think. And so to hear Russell T Davies and to see him click back into showrunner mode, to do what I feel he does best outside of writing it, and be a ringmaster and a publicist for this series again, just in the nick of time. It's a big relief to me, because I did wonder, you know, are they just going to let this? Are they going to let this slide? Are they going to leave this to Disney? I think, well, Disney, the experts, they'll do a better job. So I'm really pleased that Russell is giving interviews. He's turning up here and there, and I would imagine that we probably will be sick of the sight of him between now and next March, whenever the series proper starts.
Yeah.
But this week
yeah.
he's given an interview to the long-standing sci-fi magazine SFX, hasn't he? So they've put out their December issue. So this is in shops right now. If you're lucky, it's sold out online, but yeah, it's dotted around here and there. Some supermarkets, I understand, do still have copies of this. And so he's given a generous interview. There's lots of Doctor Who goodies in here. It comes in a big bag with lots of gifts, all that kind of thing. But in here, he goes into greater length about more administrative issues behind the upcoming return of Doctor Who. So he let it slip that he's planning a third and fourth run of news stories, which fulfills one of the items on that wish list that he had that we read about a few weeks ago, that he was guaranteeing specifically in that list that the Doctor Who series would return to annual production. So that's a good thing. No more gap years, because they really did harm the brand, the show, didn't they, Andy? The fact that it just wasn't there hardly ever.
Well, I mean, it wasn't there. You know, we didn't have all the hype around, because we always used to get like some, it would drop around like Easter. It'd be kind of an event, and it was something you look forward to. But they just knew they were losing the audience. They weren't prepared to change anything. They weren't prepared to lose face. So it's almost like we'll just let it sort of slip out the door quietly. It'll be longer and longer before it comes on, and then eventually people won't even notice that it's not even on. I think that was the plan almost, that people, like, if you're watching something every year and then it's not there, you're like, oh, that's funny, it's normally out this time of year. But you go 18 months, you go another year, and then
quickly get on with the rest of your life. Well, the general public do. Us Doctor Who fans tend not to.
Like, and then they don't even notice that it's not on when it should be on. Do you know what I mean?
But underneath the cover of this issue of SFX, once you get past that with Beep the Meep and the Wraith Warriors and the 14th Doctor looking fabulous with the eyebrow cocked up, it's irresistible stuff. Doctor Who special, and there's an exclusive set of pictures and all manner of things in here that we'd never seen before. But once you get past that, there is a bombshell or two. And I think the biggest shock to the collective system was this statement. That's just it just seems quite innocuous. It just seems like the most just natural thing, because it does seem like a
throwaway comment, isn't it? It's like, and da-da-da-da-da.
It's a great interview that does read like a very natural conversation. Yes. And so you want your interviewees to be relaxed when you're talking to them like this. But this is the big surprise that a lot of people have found, because he's announced in this that during this sort of big overhaul of the brand, that the numbering, the naming conventions of the series themselves are also changing. So what we have assumed and been calling Series 14 over the last, say, 18 months or so, right from the nearly 2 years, isn't it, is going to be officially known as Season 1 from this moment on. So this is terminology that was used on the classic run from 63 to 89. It was Season 1 through to 26. Doctor Who was the only British series that ever used the term seasons back then, wasn't it? The fans loved it, Andy, but it was abandoned in favour of the term series for the big comeback in 2005. Doctor Who fans are very difficult to please. But but he's dropped this out. So this is part of the article. I've got a quote here, and this is what he exactly told the SFX magazine. Oh, we're not supposed to say. And he's redacted something there, are we? So I think that was in nature to the exact release date. They're still they're still holding back when the next series is actually going to begin. But, the safe money is on Easter, but they're not going to say that probably until February. So, we're not supposed to say, are we? Next year, Season 1. Yes, we're calling it Season 1. And when pushed, he says, what fun that is to be controversial. So he knows that people may feel a certain way about that. I have to be honest, though, Andy, not only was I not surprised by this, I was expecting it and have been talking about it for a little while now. What do you think about this? Were you surprised?
I was a little bit, to be honest, because, again, I think kind of not political reasons per se, but again, that we all know the Jodie Doctor didn't work as much as the BBC want to pretend that it did. So as soon as you're kind of resetting the clock or drawing a line or sort of saying this isn't that, it's kind of throwing a little bit of shade on what has come previously. I think it makes it look like we're trying to disassociate ourselves from Jodie almost.
I have no doubt that editorially the BBC have made certain choices for reasons that they won't ever talk about publicly, but
Yeah.
I've been following this for a little while. The guy who's the special effects coordinator on the series, Danny Hargreaves, so he was there right the way from about 2006 up until 2017. There's another one that Chris Chibnall let go, should we say, along with everybody else who knew what they were doing, you know.
Yes.
So he let Danny Hargreaves and his company go. Well, he's back, and he's been saying, and this was on social media well over a year ago. He says, we're getting ready for the second reboot of Doctor Who. Those were his exact words. Not, oh, I'm delighted to be back on this show. I'm going back to Doctor Who. He used that term, we're getting ready for the second reboot of Doctor Who. To me, that was a very clear indicator from a man on the inside who'd be there in those production meetings, that this was 2004 all over again, a brand new production. And when something goes out of production, because again, the entire production that wrapped in 2021, they filmed The Power of the Doctor, that wrapped 2 years ago, that was completely closed down. The show was no longer in production for the best part of a year. That it had no base. Nobody was technically attached to it. Nobody was hired. The show was out of production. So if something is a ground-up production, then why wouldn't he talk like that? And that was an indicator to me that something like this would happen administratively. But then there was the talk from Bad Wolf themselves. Or they've always referred to this upcoming new production as all new Doctor Who. I think, well, why make that distinction unless you weren't aware it had to be marketedly different and marketed completely differently too? We were talking earlier on about gap years and how that time away from the screen can be a bad thing. I think when you've had a very public failure, you can turn that into a good thing, and you can actually let that.
Someone as savvy as RTD will, absolutely use it to his advantage. Like I say, you can put whatever spin on it you like to sort of, it's out the public consciousness. Let's reset. I think it's probably more of a reset than a reboot. I don't know, but let's reset. Let's go again. Let's remind people what they loved about the show. And the thing I think that he's really good at is getting the normies. So, and for this to be a success, they have to get the normies back. His stories are relatable. You don't have to be a science fiction fan. You don't have to have watched all 40 seasons, to know what's going on. And he is the master of that. So I think even for Doctor Who fans, or for myself personally, if it's almost like a soft reboot, I think that's a good thing. It's a reset. It's a new Doctor, new storylines, new characters coming, new adversaries, new characters coming in, not just sort of. And I think what he also does really well is because obviously he's a massive Doctor Who fan, hence why a lot of us have a lot of faith in him, because he gets it. He gets the DNA of the show. So he will look back with reverence and respect, but he will bring enough new stuff to the table that it brings in new people and keeps us interested. That's quite exciting to think, what new is he going to bring? So yes, we've got the Celestial Toymaker coming back, who most people won't know, I would have thought. And I think the 60th should look back. I mean, that's kind of the point of the anniversary. But, going into the new show, you've got to have Daleks, you've got to have Cybermen, but I think there's going to be a whole raft of new creations, which I'm really looking forward to. In
geek culture, we feel very differently about these things than the general public do. They're not going to care what the series is called, is termed, how it's filed. The general people who watch BBC One in particular will not care, because it'll just be there for them on the iPlayer or broadcast on BBC One on a Saturday night. To geeks, I think when we see something be renumbered, and we look at the world of comic books and DC and Marvel comic books, they increasingly renumber all their main books, don't they? And this, at one time, they'd renumber a book every 10 or 15 years and relaunch it or something. Now it seems to happen most years, and it's usually an indicator of flagging interest in something, the decline of a brand, that it's got to be artificially sort of re-stimulated by, here's another ideal jumping on. But it's all got that stench of desperation about it. But that's not what's happening here, is it?
No, I don't think so. And I say the point I was going to make was that I think also for Disney, because they're not going to have the back catalogue, if you put a new show up that says season 15, people are like, well, I haven't seen seasons 1 to 14, so what's the point of me watching? I haven't got time to go back and watch 14 seasons or something to figure out what's going on. It's the most
natural thing in the world, isn't it, to think to just go and look for the episodes that you may have missed. You want to in the age of binge watching, especially think, well, I've got a weekend free, I can catch up on 5 series of something.
Yeah. So in one way, it could be a negative that if people don't, I mean, there are some people who live in a vacuum who've never heard of Doctor Who. I don't know how that's possible. But if you sort of go there and go, oh, season 1, and they've got no comprehension that something's there before, then they won't necessarily go look for it. But, if Disney market it as, because again, Disney aren't going to want people going to the other stream. I'm not sure which platform has it. Is it like Hulu has Doctor Who or something?
It's HBO Max. Yeah, we've got a quote here. Okay. Disney Plus spoke to Inverse about it, and they said if you want to watch New Who, the series starting from season 1, they're calling it season 1, in 2005, all the way up to the last episode that was produced, that's still available on Max, formerly HBO Max. Right. Whilst classic Doctor Who, that is still up in North America on BritBox. Potentially, people have got to have three subscriptions to watch all of Doctor Who in America, which isn't ideal. It's not going to be what they're going to want permanently, but it is what it is, and this is where launch absolutely had to happen. And so I suppose it's just a matter of waiting for all the pieces to drop into place.
Yeah. So from Disney's perspective, they don't really want to promote. If somebody goes off and gets Max to watch Doctor Who, they might find some other stuff they want to watch and don't keep their Disney channel. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit of a weird situation. Reasonable. So it's like they're not massively going to want to promote what's come before because they want people to obviously have the Disney channel to watch new Who. I mean, on the iPlayer, what's it going to look like? Because you kind of got seasons 1 to 26, then season 1 to 13, and then season 1 again. It's like, oh my gosh.
You're talking about the rebrand, the relaunch of Doctor Who domestically on the iPlayer with this domestic streaming hub. So this is what it looks like. You've got this gorgeous new golden logo there and a homepage with Doctor Who icons. And I always think that the iPlayer, it is quite easy to use. Yes. But when you go to the actual show, you've got all these various tiles, and you can see how it's divided up. So they've got the spin-off shows and everything else there. But Doctor Who itself is denoted pretty clearly, I suppose. Doctor Who 63 to 96, that does include the McGann movie there, and Doctor Who 2005 to 2022. This probably will work for people, won't it? For license fee payers on the platform.
Yeah. I mean, it's very. I mean, I assume obviously at some point we'll have a third title that says Doctor Who 2023, or 2024, or specials and 2024 maybe. But so yeah, I mean, it'd be quite clear to, and obviously from the thumbnail I'll have Shooty and probably Millie. Is her name Millie?
I would imagine it'll all be sort of reorientated. When it comes to the new cast, and that will be very much when you hit the homepage. I would imagine those episodes will be right there, and then it will be like for further or for if you want to see earlier episodes, then click this tab. I would imagine it'll get very gradually sort of retooled between now and then. It'll all be very obvious. The people who've worked on iPlayer, and I'm not one for singing the praises of anything connected with the BBC, but they've always done a bang-up job with iPlayer. I can't knock them for that. I feel that everything will be absolutely fine with this renumbering of Doctor Who. I think it's perfectly okay. I'd rather it not have happened, but then again, I'd rather the last 4 or 5 years not happen. I'd rather the show not have been taken out of production and cancelled, and this entire rescue job have been necessary in the first place. But as I keep saying, we are where we are. Some fans are saying this will be really confusing because when we talk about season 1, we talk about season 1 starring William Hartnell and Carol Ann Ford from all the way back in 1963. But I suspect that we'll get used to it in time, and it will be, generally speaking, okay. It's just a short while now till the 60th anniversary specials. They're coming up. We've got the broadcast dates here. So the Star Beast on Saturday, the 25th of November, followed by Wild Blue Yonder Saturday, the 2nd of December, and it finishes off with The Giggle on Saturday, the 9th of December. And after that, we've got the Christmas special and another wait, just a little wait this time before the next new era starts. And Disney are on board. They're badging it as original specials for the 60th anniversary. I would imagine that, between now and then straight into 2024, we're going to see a lot of things that may well sort of rattle our cages as British Doctor Who fans and as British geeks generally, Andi. But we'll get used to it, won't we? We'll get used to it. Won't we?
I think we'll put up with it. I think is, you know, well, the thing is, face it, right, we're very fickle as fans, and we're probably like poor faces, but actually they do a really good job and it brings people to the show. We'll turn a blind eye. If it doesn't, we'll go Disney. So Disney's like ruined everything, like they've ruined everything else. So we're very fickle in that sense. But you know, but like I say, the marketing machine at Disney for the last, you know, 2 decades has been great, you know, but people have just seen behind the curtain now. They just know there's no substance behind what's coming. But it doesn't mean the marketing machine itself isn't still good. We just know what it's promoting isn't. Yeah.
But that's what we think. But what do you think? Let us know through our social media, Instagram and X at Type40 Doctor Who, or drop us a comment. By all means, pick on some of this. More Type 40 for Whovember coming up. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, check you're still subscribed, and hit the cloister bell to get all the notifications about what we're doing next and when we're doing it. Thanks for your company on this one, Andi. We're going to get on more live streams, I know, soon. And tell people again where they can find you. What's the name of your channel?
It's Atomic Blonde LDN, I just talk about pop culture, what's going on in the news, reviews, and there's going to be a lot of Doctor Who talk, I'm sure, again in the run up to 60th. So come find my channel.
Series, season, are you confused already? Does this make any difference at all? Is this all a big fuss about nothing, or is this an indicator that Doctor Who is going to get pulled deeper into the culture war, and some reason to sort of man the lifeboats and throw up arms and hurl our remote controls in despair at what Disney has made BBC Studios and Bad Wolf do? Let us know in the comments section. More Type 40 for Whovember coming up soon.